Oh yeah, we back with another episode of The Twisted Tea, where we come to read these Reddits to you. Alright, and we getting into one right now. We've got a lady who had a baby about 11 months ago, and she wants to know, is she overreacting because the husband keeps getting upset and he wants to get that baby off the booby? Let's dive. My baby is an 11-month-old, and guess what? I'm still breastfeeding. That's right. I feed him on demand, blah, blah, throughout the day and the night. He also eats, 3 meals of solid food. I do co-sleep with the baby. I know, I'm a nurse, and I should know better, but it just happens. And I feed him throughout the night. That's right. When he wakes up and he wants that booby, I pop it. Boom! My husband refuses to sleep with us, and he sleeps on the couch. Listen, I'm totally fine with that, because he doesn't like the sound of my baby nursing. Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? All that booby milk. He don't like the sound of it. He has been pressuring me excessively on nights to wean our baby. Yeah, a few times he's made me try weaning our baby, which requires us getting up every time that baby wakes up crying to nurse and walk him around to try and settle him back to sleep. I refuse after 2 attempts because I can't stand my baby being upset, and he got so mad at me. Am I overreacting? I feel like he's being a bit of a douche about this. Well, I mean, if you only hitting that baby with the good stuff, I feel like he being a bit of a douche about this too. Now, we're going to see what was sent inside these messages, and then we'll review. So, let's see what these messages got to say. Let's go back to page 1. Okay, he is a perfectly healthy and weight and height, growing beautifully. My body is doing that for him, and you're a jerk about it. I just think all day and night is a little excessive, that's all. But what's the issue? He's not overweight. Am I harming him by breastfeeding him? In my head, breastfeeding him every time he cries is excessive. That's all I mean. It's not every time he cries though. I just don't get why I'm wrong for feeding him when I'm feeding him throughout the night when he wakes up and he wants that milk. Squirt, squirt. Oh, wow. So, she then goes on and posts that the proper age to, these are AI overviews. I guess they went to Google to figure this one out. And it says, the age of weaning children for naturally stopping breastfeeding typically falls between 2 and 7. A little older than I expected, but hey, it is what it is. The more the merrier, right? That breast milk is going to give him some of the best protein, some of the best stuff in his life. Some of the best. So give him all the breast milk you can. This is the gradual process that becomes more dependent on solid foods. Early weaning starts between 2 and 3, and then excessive weaning is 3 to 7. I will say I went to the beach one day. This person wrote, here's a study. They came out with the facts for the husband. Even though they have these things listed as, studies and different things, honestly, it's up to you as a person. Some people don't even make it that far into breastfeeding because they're not able to produce. And I'm sure that hurts. I guess the good news to this is you are able to produce and you're enjoying it. And you know what? He might be a bit of an overreactor and a little bit of a douche because he's deciding to try to stop you from doing that. I get it. It's during the night, but he made that decision and the choice not to want to be inside that bedroom with you all and to go to the couch. And that's on him. Now, is it a possibility that he just wants to hug you, hold you, and be next to you? Yeah, it's a possibility that he just feels like it's been too long. But the truth of the matter is, when you have a kid, all of that stuff goes out the window. You got a couple years before all that stuff goes out the window. And if you don't believe me, just ask anybody else that got a kid over the age of 10. And they'll all tell you that 1, 2, 3, those years, in your first few months, they're rough. They're rough, especially for your sleeping. Especially for your habits in the quiet time. Now, you all can probably come to a compromise here, right? And you can probably wean him off, or you could pump, right? So this way, he has something that he can eat that's not necessarily hooked up to the titty, but he can have that milk still. But again, if you're feeding him throughout the day as much as you are, and at night as much as you are, you say he's healthy. I'm not saying you should stop, but I'm saying I think that he is receiving enough to the point where, you don't necessarily need to feed him at night. He may be hungry because he's used to that at this point. Maybe you should double up the feedings before bed. I'm just saying. Maybe you should double up the feedings before bed, and if he is eating something that has a little bit more solidness to it, find a way to get that to him or to her. Just find a way to get that to your baby before the baby goes to before he goes to sleep. All right, let's dive into some of these comments. As before we get into it, I'm going to tell you again, I don't think you're overreacting. I think he's underreacting and not understanding the fact that, this is just the way it works for the first few years having a baby. You stick your thing in, something comes out, guess what? You're stuck. That's how it works. That's just the way it works. Okay. I think it's possible that your husband is just missing out on his bond with you, his wife, and he thinks enough's enough. He always sleeps on the couch. Well, that's not great unless he absolutely loves sleeping there and he's comfortable there. No, it might not be great, but he definitely made that choice, right? So you made the choice. You could have slept in the bed. You choose not to due to sounds. You have headphones because you're grown, so you can put those on and choose to avoid listening to the sounds. So let's not act like there's not a way around it, okay? It's so easy to forget that when we have partners, we need to, with kids, it's so easy to forget that we have partners with needs too when we have kids, especially infants. They can take up a lot of time, but I do think that compromise could be found for you and your husband. You both have to give a little. Fun fact, babies who get responses when they cry tend to grow up to be independent and confident because they develop a understanding that if they do need something, someone will be there for them. Babies who are ignored when they cry tend to grow up to be selfish, throw temper tantrums because, well, they're taught that no one will take care of them unless they force the issue, which, let's just step back and be honest. I'm pretty sure anyone listening can relate. You have seen kids that go out, have these temper tantrums after they've asked for stuff, and then they go show out, do out in order to get the attention that they're looking for. With that being said, now, I don't know if it does stem from this or not. This sounds reasonable. It sounds like it makes a lot of sense, okay? This person also wrote that, I am not an authority on childhood development and I have no interest on being one, but as someone who is asking for a primary source on statements with a quick Google search should show that, you agree on among people it is a serious conversation topic, which will assume 100% of the time that they're just interested in having intellectual fights online. Yeah, okay. For anyone genuinely interested in the first place, they heard this information through co-parenting classes. All right. Listen, the one thing we do know that it is important to give attention, right? And show attention. Obviously, it's one thing when you want to try and raise that child to be tough. And it's another thing when you're just straight neglecting your responsibilities as a parent. I'm not saying this person is. I'm not saying the husband is, because neither one of them seem to be neglecting their responsibilities. But the husband's definitely overlooking what is going on here. This is such an important point and something that I think people really miss. Okay? The husband said about responding to them being excessive. Ironically, the common sense thing is that people do, right? What they're relating to is how the husband mentioned to the wife that whenever the baby cries, she's right there, right? Popping that thing in the mouth. Let me get that. So the husband said that he thinks that that's excessive. The fact that every time the baby cries, she popped that booby in there. Now, again, this is an infant that we're talking about and not a 4-year-old, not a 5-year-old. Now, if it was a 4 or a 5-year-old and they were crying, then I would tell you something different. But considering how it is an 11-month-year-old, I do feel as though when you are that young as a baby and you cry, there's a reason. Most babies at that age just aren't crying to be crying because it's fun to cry. They're crying because they either have a wet diaper they need to eat or they're just irritable, right? For the most part, at those ages, they're pretty decent as far as not crying to just be crying. So, yes, it's you're doing a good thing. And yes, there is a difference between tough love and or letting a baby cry. Like when you try to put a baby to sleep, for instance, and you pop them in their crib and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to just let you cry yourself to sleep because there's nothing I can do. That's different, right? That's different. Even though that baby that is crying themselves to sleep, right? Well, We look at it and go, oh yeah, they're gonna be tough and they're gonna be independent and they're gonna be fine. We don't really know until they get older what trauma that may or may not have caused. We don't know. So we can't sit here and say we do, because we don't. Okay? We have no idea. And with that being said, it is important that you keep up with paying attention to your kids. It is important that you keep up and pay attention to your spouses. But it is also very important that everybody understands when having a kid, things change. Right? And for the next few years, things will not be the same. So, if you can understand that and you all can compromise, you'll be fine in this situation. If you cannot understand that and you can't compromise and find times for each other and with each other, then it's going to be a messy ride. Okay? Now, other people will come out and say that they don't feel as though you should be sleeping with that baby at this age and that the baby is overeating like this person. They said that the baby may be overeating 3 times a day is a bit much. Every time that baby cries, is the baby hungry? And maybe you should feed that baby more during the day. I do agree with maybe you should feed that baby more during the day, and that might just help with the nighttime waking up. Now, we both and all know that breastfeeding is more than just food, because it is a huge comfort. It's bonding. Absolutely right. She doesn't say that walking around with the baby is an issue. She just said it's a bit uncomfortable for what's going on. All right. Some people do have to stop breastfeeding way before they want to, and I bet you it hurts, right? And they wish that they could. So with you having the ability to do it, by all means, give it. You get that breast milk out. You make sure that that baby's breast milked up, because that's gonna help build that little immune system for the rest of that baby's life. Something that the medicines and the other crap that's out there will not do. Okay? Now, this person right here says they personally stopped feeding their kids at night around 4 months years old. They were getting enough calories throughout the day to sustain themselves. Even if they would wake up in the middle of the night, I typically wouldn't feed them after 4 months. My pediatrician told me at our 10-month appointment that we should be moving to typically real meals. So breakfast, lunch, dinner. With that being said, I do understand comforting it in both of you and the baby. It is an amazing time to bond with your baby, and seeing as you have demanding job as a nurse, I don't blame you for wanting that moment to connect with your child. I don't blame you either. And I hope that you continue finding small moments to connect with your child as that your child continues to grow. From what you showed us, I personally do not think your husband's being a douche. If I had to guess, I would say that he probably misses his bed and his wife and that time of connections with you. And he may miss that stuff. That is very true. But again, like I said, you could find that. Even if he may not admit it, because he's a man. However, I do think that you're necessarily overreacting. I think that there is a bit of a communication breakdown. Okay. Why are all the night feedings so critical to you? What are you and the baby gaining from night feedings? And why exactly does your husband want you to wean off of this? Is it because he wants his bed back, or does he not support you breastfeeding at all? I guess those are some good questions. Ultimately, I think that the bigger conversation needs to be had between you and your husband. I also think that a lot of self-reflecting is required too. I know how difficult it is to have a full-time job and breastfeed, pump for my kids, so physically, emotionally demanding. But it was also a great moment to bond for me, something I will cherish forever. But I will also cherish my husband and our connection. And if one feeding out of the 4 or 5 I did a day interfered with my husband and I would try my best to give one feeding to improve on our connection as well. If you end up deciding to try to wean, consider joining some evidence-based sleep training groups with your husband so that you and your husband can get on board too. In my experience, it's easier for my husband to sleep train our kids than me because I was breastfeeding. If this is something he wants, he should also be willing to put the effort in and get the baby out of their bed. Best of luck to you. You should be very proud of yourself for how long you've been feeding your child. But please don't forget about your connection with your husband as well. You're absolutely right. Honestly, I think that this is less about breastfeeding and more about your husband being indefinitely kicked out of his own space and sleeping on the couch and possibly feeling a little less connected to you as well. Some dads struggle with this when fit in mom and the baby. I think for the sake of your relationship and baby's safety, you should stop the co-sleeping and start having your baby sleep in its own room. They are definitely old enough to be sleeping in their own room and bed. I think that would bring you some peace in the situation. Maybe it would be a good idea to try to tone it down through the night. And listen, at the end of the day, based off of what they're saying and based off of what you're saying, if this is a problem with your husband, as far as him wanting to be more connected to you, it's understandable. But I'm going to also say, at no way, shape, or form should it come at a cost of the baby. No matter what these people say. All right? Because at the end of the day, none of them know until their babies get older and tell them about themselves how they feel. Period. End of story. All right? You do what you think is best. And if your husband feels some type of way about it, then he need to pick his nuts up and stop bullshitting, because realistically, he could find time to hold you. He could find time to hug you. He could find time to love you. And if he truly wanted it and you truly wanted to make it happen, you will. Period. So, continue what you do. All right? You might want to slowly start getting off the nighttime feedings, right? If you want to co-sleep with your baby, don't let these people tell you what to do. All right? That baby might feel so secure with you that it just puts the baby out. Okay? You only going to have a few years of that. And then it's going to go away. And then you get to that point where the babies don't even want to be next to you. So please enjoy it while you can. I'm just saying. While you out there, don't forget to look left, look right, and keep that head on a swivel. Because not everybody's out there with your best interests at hand. Peace out.